So I'm Diego, and with me is Mélanie, the new co-chair of Green Party in Europe.
Yes.
Thank you for to be here. The past June the 5th, you've been elected the co-chair of the Green Party. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's obviously a very crucial moment for the Greens in Europe, for Europe as a whole, but of course for all those who want to propose a plan to deliver on green and social justice. The main goal we have as European Green Party is to ensure that in the next European election, Greens are capable of winning majorities in favor of change, green change, because change is happening anyway, right? It's not the question of whether we are going to stay on the same track or not, because we are not. The climate crisis is there. It is not anymore something that could happen theoretically in the future. It is there. The question is to shape change into the good direction. So yeah, it's obviously a very intense and crucial moment, I think, to be the co-chair of the European Green Party.
In this past election, we saw, I think, almost in whole Europe, there was a rise of far right in different countries. Le Pen in France, Mélanie in Italy, also Vox in Spain, or Chega in Portugal. And they are very related with climate denial and against the climate policy. So how can this affect to ecological transition and to the mindset of the people?
No, I mean, it can affect the ecological transition in the sense that they're never going to do it. The first thing the far right does when they access into power is that they destroy the fundamental basis of the functioning of democracy. And I believe that climate is a democratic issue, right? The climate crisis is a model crisis, a model where over-exploitation of natural resources led to destroying the possibility, first and foremost for the most vulnerable in the society, to live decently on this planet. And this was a choice that was never made democratically. And so by breaking the possibility to talk about the real topics in parliament with rule of law and all the mechanism that ensure that you can have policies in favor of the common good, they're destroying the possibility to have solutions to the climate crisis. The second thing is that right now, the far right all over Europe is pretty clearly siding with Putin, right? And we have seen that peace and climate security are now exactly the same question. So if we have more government in Europe who fall, they are not only going to destroy fundamental rights in their countries, they're also going to destroy the possibility we have to implement peace at global level. We see now, we have always said it as Greens. 40 years ago, like, people were telling us that we were crazy, but we have always said that renewable energy, it's of course a way to save the climate, but it's also a way to save peace and democracy, because dependency on dictatorship is one of the biggest obstacles to peace right now. And if we have more and more government in Europe who don't want to have a Europe that is independent on an energetical level, I don't know how we can have peace in the world.
For sure. Later we will talk about this energy crisis in Europe, but first I want to talk to something really polemic that took place in European Union this year, and is that the European Union gave the green label to gas and nuclear. Is this compatible, possible with the ecological transition?
I have a very, very simple answer to this. No. No, it's not. It's terrible for what it means for our capacity to invest in renewables and in green transition in Europe, but it's also a very damaging political act at global level, because it destroys the credibility of Europe to tell. I mean, how can you be credible on the global stage in COP when you are trying to tell other countries in the world to lower down their emissions, how credible are you when you say that fossil fuels and nuclear energy are green? I mean, it's not only a bad policy in Europe, it's just a bad policy generally, because it really laminates the credibility of Europe as a whole in the fight for climate.
Yeah, because actually European Union wants to be the world leader of of ecological transition, and I don't know if you think that we are doing in this way, if we are doing enough, or.
So, of course, we are not doing enough, right? Because otherwise, there wouldn't be a climate crisis.
Okay, so maybe not enough, but maybe.
We are not doing enough at European level, for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
Not only when it comes to investing in the green transition, but also when you see the common agricultural policy that is still really enshrined in an old school model of massive production using a lot of chemicals. So no, we are not doing enough. At the same time, the European level is our only chance to make sure that we have climate policy. So to me, it's not that much like if Europe is doing enough, it's how to change the political majority at European level to make sure that we implement change. Because for a lot of member states, some want to go further, and that's really good, and we need them in the council to, impulse better change. But for some countries like mine, like France, Europe is actually imposing greener policies than what the French government would do alone. So it is not doing enough, but it is the absolutely necessary level to be sure we do something.
Okay, that's a nice point of view. And yeah, we are living a war in Europe. You talked before about this energy dependence of different countries, and which for sure this war has a lot of consequences. Firstly, for the people that they are suffering themselves. But again, I have the feeling that energy crisis eclipses climate crisis. And I don't know if you share also this feeling, because instead of looking for, as we said, renewable energy or alternatives to fossil fuels, we are looking for where to take the gas from another suppliers.
Yeah, we have a very deep addiction to fossil fuels in our economic models. And it's true that it works both sides. You have people saying that because of the social crisis, we need to wait a little bit more to save the planet. But you also have the other way around. People who say, there is a climate crisis, so we need to do anti-social policies. And I think both have to be fought, and that's also our responsibility as Greens to show that the social impact of the climate crisis need to have we need to deliver some credible and tangible options, because it's absolutely clear that the social crisis and the climate crisis are the crises of the same model, right? It's not that they are different.
Separate,
It's the same thing. It's the capitalistic model that exploits fossil fuels, etc., that is responsible for social injustices today. The one who contributes the most to the climate crisis are the one paying the less, and they are the least affected. The one who contributed the least, the poorest people in the society, the most vulnerable, are the one who are paying the most and who are affected the most by the crisis. They are the ones who live in neighborhoods where the air is polluted, who eat food that is not good, who have more cancers, who live in housings that are not isolated enough, and who have to pay bills that they cannot afford anymore. So it is also our responsibility, I think, I say this as a green politician, to give very concrete, tangible answers to show to people that actually the green agenda is the one that is going to save them from the crisis that is the crisis of today, right? Not the crisis of tomorrow, today.
Yeah, as you say, I think those crises, they are being part of the same crisis, and as you said, like different this model of consumption, overconsumption, the way that we use the agriculture, the way that we use the nature. So my last question is, if you think that once we forgot the COVID pandemic, if you think that greenwashing and also green capitalism, like maybe the little actions to change something, but change nothing, if you think that those things are going to be the next pandemic during the next years?
So that's an interesting question. I think that actually if that was true, it would mean that we have the time to go through another pandemic with greenwashing. I think it's not going to be the next pandemic just because we don't have time. If we do greenwashing, it's dead.
Yeah.
You know, like we have few years to act. We have few years to put the world in the direction of a livable planet or unlivable planet for humans. It's a very like basic choice. And it's not that we have 10, 20, 30 years, right? We have really few years. So I think it's going to be much worse than the next pandemic. If we do greenwashing, there is nothing after those few years, right? The pandemic it's a crisis. A crisis is something that you can, overcome. Greenwashing today in 2022 will create a crisis that you cannot overcome.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different.
Yeah, okay. So thank you very much, Mélanie. It was a pleasure to have you here. I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you.
It's okay.